Gritty, glitchy, and strangely profound, Peripeteia isn't just another indie throwback. It's something far weirder, in the best way possible. If you're watching this, you're probably either a fan looking to see what others think about the game, someone curious before buying it, or just stumbled here randomly. Either way, there's no point in waiting, so let's go ahead and jump into the video. Development began in 2020, led by Shodanon, Dwyer, and Baldur's Gate, along with several collaborators. You can find the full list on their website here, and I will also link it in the video description if you're curious. This cyberpunk nightmare starts with you, the character Marie, waking up in a trash heap, essentially. And what struck me first was the simplicity of the UI and the post-Soviet symbolism. Looking up, your eyes are immediately flashbanged by the hammer and sickle of the USSR projected by some light. Once my American capitalist brain recovered, I discovered a ladder that was too high off the ground to reach properly. Perry forces you to rub your two brain cells together and utilize the tools given to you to parkour out of this hole. Being a cyborg anime girl, Marie gets access to built-in super speed, a double jump when falling, and night vision, and a drone of all things, right off the start of the game. All of these enhancements require energy, and that energy bar is the blue bar above your health. You replenish energy by consuming batteries, energy fuses, and even beer. All of these items can be found throughout exploring the map and bartering with NPCs that are also vendors throughout the world. Classic RPG style, you have built-in options to respond and ask questions, and it is also here that you gain access to your first ever quest in this Slavic nightmare by a maid named Philemon. The dialogue choices you make with Philemon here will determine your starting weapon and give you more insight on what is happening in the world around you. I think this is a nice touch to give the player expectations. Always love it when games start like this. Once you begin your first quest from our boy Philemon, you realize something apparent. There's no quest marker. The only tools you have to navigate and delve into the environment are your journal, dialogues, compass at the top of your screen, and your wrinkle-abundant brain, assuming you have some, which I hope you do. The journal highlights your current objectives and tasks, while your dialogue tab could be used to recollect what you were told and said in conversations. The rest of the exploration and navigation is completely up to you and your brain. The feeling of getting lost in general exploration is a big appeal of this game's style, so going around and finding loot containers like at Stalker or other open world games will give you a sense of that satisfaction. Accompanied with the Tarkov/Stalker-esque inventory management system is a touch the game does really well. It really forces you to make sacrifices on loot that may or may not be useful in future encounters. If you paid attention like a good little gamer, you'll receive the directions from Philemon, and the first thing you might see is the skybox of the level and its general vibe. In my opinion, it's peak dystopian vibes. The rain accompanied by neon distant lights and Soviet post-industry kinda hit me. Really reminded me of when I was a kid playing Halo 3 ODST in New Mombasa. It was isolated, rain-soaked, and hauntingly industrial. That same feeling of eerie calm, you know? The game is surprisingly dense with story inferences and UI charm, and you'll come to realize this. A prime example is the icon of Marie, a Fallout Vault Boy-styled health limb diagram system, and each cybernetic enhancement you find also has its own charming model and design of Marie to complement the enhancement's purpose. Each weapon I found also had its own dedicated little description with various blurbs of lore and flavor text. After coming across a couple of NPCs, communists, and getting flashbacks during your time at the American DMV, you might be greeted by a group of subculturalists. Turns out, they won't let you pass to complete your quest for Philemon, so you're met with three options. 1. Sneak past the shitty barricade to the left of them they made. 2. Leave and fight another way. Or 3. Do a little trolling and blow up the receptionist in the DMV. If you're based like me and decide to shoot them in the face, your ears will be then given a taste of what music you'll hear throughout the rest of the game. The tracks utilized in the game are heavily breakcore and trip-hop inspired, and a lot of the songs are tracks by an artist called Sewer Slut. You can find them on Spotify, SoundCloud, or whatever your preferred method of listening is. The songs chosen really add to the dreamlike vibe of the game itself, and these songs combined with the PS1 era art style really reminds you of classics like Deus Ex and even new indie titles like Cruelty Squad, some of which the devs openly admit is pretty good inspiration for the game. You could also find a lot of propaganda posters, flyers, signs, and Polish media throughout the game itself. It gives a glimpse of the general background of what's happened in the universe and why this place feels the way it does. You could even see what Marie thinks about posters, people, and the environment by zooming in or right-clicking by default. Like in many RPGs of its genre, your choices tend to matter in this game, and Peripeteia is similar in that regard. When you get access to different quests, you will often come across people who try to offer you a different route of completion, or from my experience, many of the quest chains have options, and each path you choose will have an effect on the environment and NPCs in that level. For instance, if you decide to align yourself and help the communists out, you're probably going to be up against the Polish army, or vice versa. I mentioned the different quest chains per level, but one thing about Perry that I realized is that your actions from prior levels will not impact your experience in the next. I could be wrong, but every level I played and whatever route I went about doing that level, and the next it had no impact. Each level in Peripeteia functions like a self-contained episode, so once you finish your quest chain, you're directed to board a train to continue to the next level. The real kicker is that nothing in your inventory carries over besides your cybernetics you may have found and the currency you accumulated per missions. That cool AK or Mosin you had last mission? Nah, it's gone, Chief. The only thing you start with is a saber, 1 energy and 1 health fuse, and the money to your name. At first I was annoyed and felt like it took away my player progression, but after the second level I kind of began to embrace it. I began to appreciate the idea of a fresh start at every level, and it made me rely on myself to rearm and explore rather than get too comfortable with the equipment I had. You could also save whenever, so, it's simple, press start, even utilize the hotkeys for saving or quick loading. But there is one level, just one, that throws that comfort out the window. So when you see Marie hiding under a blanket like she just heard the Slavic SCP version of the Boogeyman, slam that save button like your life depends on it, because it absolutely will. As for the levels in the early access version, there are 6 main story levels and 2 bonus levels, and without spoiling anything as this review is trying to do, each level extends on its own aesthetic and offers a variety of approaches to quests and different pathways. Keep in mind, in my first playthrough alone, I spent about 15 to 20 hours, and each level offers a surprising amount of replayability. So much so that when I went back to record the footage for this video, I was finding new paths, NPCs, and even new quest chains I had no clue about in my initial run. I was really worried that many of the levels were going to be railroaded or lacking in content, that it wouldn't justify the $25 price tag, but the more I explored, the more I began to realize how dense some of these missions really are. Most, if not all, the questions in the game offer the player a choice, which is really nice. There's even options for taking the stealthy approach or even being diplomatic and non-hostile. Like literally, the first level after talking to Philmon, you can report him to the Polish officers at the DMV thing and board the train, basically allowing you to complete the level in under 2 minutes. It's kind of funny. And in one of the levels, you need to get access to a train to ride to the next portion of the map, and in one of the NPCs you could find in that level ask you to find a group of his friends. If you find those friends, they will offer you free passage to the next area, but I myself was too smooth-brained and I couldn't find them myself. If you do this, it allows you to circumvent some actions you may not agree with to get access to the train originally. So Peripeteia tries to give the player more agency in their actions, and I think it does it pretty well for an unpolished early access indie title, Let's talk about the toys, the fun stuff, the weapon sandbox. Big in early access post-Soviet Poland, the majority of the guns you'll come across are AKs, Makarovs, and a decent amount of Western NATO weaponry, but I was pleasantly surprised just how many there actually are. I mean, look at this. These are all the weapons in the game at the moment you could use in the arena sandbox level, and about, I would say, over half of them find whilst playing the levels that are out so far. Now, I've offered some praise for the game, but let's go ahead and talk about the glaring criticisms I might have, as well as suggestions I feel like to make the game a little bit better. First things first, Peripeteia's levels are like dystopian dioramas. They're beautiful, eerie, and full of depth, but weirdly disconnected. The quest chains inside each one often feel dense and meaningful until you realize none of it actually matters when you board the next train. It's like being an amnesiac anarchist. You cause chaos, they move on like nothing ever happened. But a lot of that loss in fluidity kind of feels like it's because it's an early access title, so I do think the devs say they plan to have the full story finished by its full release, and I really feel like that will help with the continuity and fluidity of the story. We talked about the weapons, but let's talk about how combat works. I spoke a little bit briefly about the combat and music, but I'm going to be as objective as I can about it. The movement and parkour system is very satisfying when you get the hang of it, and it also allows for some amazing exploration routes and combat flexibility. You can see me ignore all fall damage by grabbing onto this ledge in this one clip here, and also the gunplay can be satisfying and rewarding once you get it down, but it still is pretty clunky and unrefined. The aiming down the sight feature feels useless a majority of the time on certain guns, unless your target is incredibly far away. It even tends to sway so much it gets rough being able to reliably aim at a guy. Ammo conservation could get tricky, which is not a bad thing because it adds stakes to your actions, but it gets annoying being in a gunfight, killing a guy, and picking up his weapon only to realize his gun is completely empty despite being shot by him literal seconds ago. Now let's talk about something that might be controversial, the AI. The combat AI is certainly lacking in the intelligence department, and I'm not going to lie about that. They're not brain dead by any means, but they have instances of just running straight at you or even having the accuracy of a blind tardigrade. They occasionally will aim and shoot you through the wall as this clip shows. And I understand, I'm no AI programmer by any means, so I understand AI can be hard to balance in any game, but it would be interesting if the AI had abilities to take cover or exercise a better sense of self-preservation. I feel like that would probably make the combat feel more genuine and add a smidge of tactical forethought. Also on your feet planning and complementing your cybernetics you may find. Another thing is how easy it is to break AI pathing. I decided to break this vending machine, this bar, and the NPCs walked over to investigate the noise. This feature itself is really cool and I'm glad it's in, although they refrained from going back to their original positions prior to moving. They kind of just wandered and got stuck in places they shouldn't be. A small nitpick, but I don't doubt this will be polished eventually. Now, one of the most divisive things I've seen in the reviews is the empty maps of sense of scale controversy. I did mention earlier the maps are pretty dense overall, but a criticism I can draw is that sections of the places you'll encounter have a lot of empty space. You'll find some halls and spaces that are longer but don't seem to take advantage of its size. Some places feel like there should be more NPCs and people roaming around, and I mean, I kind of agree. This is a cyberpunk city after all, but sometimes it feels like there's more like of a curfew or some type of martial law in effect. I don't doubt this is a stylistic choice and a way to make you feel smaller in the game's world, maybe even help performance, but I think some areas like these hallways and empty rooms would benefit from at least some crates, tables, TVs, cars, maybe even dead bodies, and some more important lore bits. Some locations certainly do have these, but it could just be a tad more. That would give the player a better experience overall of exploration, while simultaneously making the world feel more genuine and allowing more environmental storytelling to be presented, rather than feeling like a slog to run back and forth through, which inevitability in this game you're going to have to kind of run back and forth between places. I do applaud there being no loading screens though, so that's amazing. Time for the fun part, the slog jig. If you're a fan of Stalker or other titles made by our friends in the European East, you should know what to expect. But there are many times I ended up talking to an NPC out of turn, or of their intended pace, or using even soft lock a couple times by the game by parkouring out somewhere I didn't know I wasn't supposed to be going to. Sometimes you'll talk to an NPC or kill someone in the wrong order and lock yourself out of a quest. It's frustrating, but it's also part of the janky charm if you're into that. It's a double-edged sword because it gives the player agency to kill or help whoever they want, but some of these actions have unforeseen consequences. Often I feel like I had to save scum in certain parts just to give myself a backup in case I ruined everything, which I guess in a way is kind of the point of a save. I wish the game made these choices a little more clear, but that could just be my expectation preset by other RPGs. The devs of Perry are very much not trying to emulate the games of the modern era, but if you could look past those differences in game philosophy, Perry is able to deliver its own unique take on how RPGs operate, and I can respect that. Alright, allow me to vent about my biggest pet peeve in this game, something that's very hyper-specific. My biggest pet peeve I had was the tanks in this game. Holy shit, were the tanks the most broken and buggy pieces of shit I had to deal with. Depending on the path you take in a certain mission, you'll be tasked with blowing up some tanks, which doesn't sound like too hard of a thing. These tanks are able to be killed by guns, but it's easier to jump on the back in the console and type in a password to blow them up, which sounds simple, right? Well, if you're trash like me at the game, you'll die a couple times trying to blow them up, and there's a chance that the tank's turrets will become disconnected from its model each time you reload your save. The tanks tend to clip through the walls as well, and will be virtually impossible to destroy. They even go Mach 3 through the map, clipping through walls, and somehow will still shoot you. It soft-locked me for nearly an hour, and I almost quit. I was worried I had to restart the entire level over again because I ended up shooting myself in the foot with a terrible save spot. But I overcame my saltiness and ended up being able to stack up on a bunch of ammo and destroy the tanks via with bullets instead. I checked their bug reports the devs listed and was glad to see I wasn't the only one with this issue, and it was a bug that is being patched in the next version from what I've read, so that relieved a lot of my discontent. Despite my criticisms, be it the Slav jank quirks or the combat that occasionally feels like I'm trying to do parkour in a diving suit, Peripeteia still managed to leave a strong impression on me. It really captures the heart of indie game development, with a small, passionate team with a clear vision, unafraid to take risks and do things their own way. It doesn't chase trends or try to wear the glossy mask of AAA polish like a lot of modern games do. It kind of just does its own weird, fascinating thing, unapologetically, and that's exactly what makes it so compelling to me. I genuinely enjoyed my time with it, and I hope the developers keep pushing it forward, because Perry has the potential to be more than just a cult classic to a small group of people. I genuinely think it could become one of the most unique and lovingly crafted immersive sins of this decade. The demo on Steam for the game contains the full first level with no limitations, so if you're interested, try it out and see if you like it. Now, if you excuse me, I got a lurk in the Discord apparently because there's a bunch of secret endings for the game I had no clue about in the final mission, so I'm gonna have to do some digging. If you want to hear me yap and just, I don't know, post some cool shit on Twitter, I guess go ahead and follow me there. You could also follow me on my Twitch channel that I'm debating on streaming more again, or you could just follow me here on YouTube and hope I upload within the next, 3 months.